Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law, My FM 101.3 with Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group. I'm John Drohan from Main Effort Financial. Tom Harmon from the Holliston Hub. HCAT is here filming us. Here we are.
We're back. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
You guys stay tuned. We'll
right back.
Yeah, be right back.
Good stuff. So what are we talking about today?
So just recently, I had an experience, and we've talked about this so many times on the, but I lived it, right? I lived it almost to the point where I almost had to give you a call. Oh. I'm like, and it wasn't like we were doing it. We weren't even talking the estate plan, although the estate plan that came up.
Sure.
But just the whole idea of like, okay. There's adult children and there's the parent, and the parent owns some property.
Sure.
Right? Parent owns some real estate, but is relatively cash poor.
Yep.
And the children are and one of the properties is a vacation property. So the children are very much invested. At least two of the children are very much invested in said vacation
Happens
property.
all the time. Yep.
And however, and there was another property that was technically sold to one of the other children. So there were, and once but that property really she hasn't really received any money from that property yet, because it's one of those. It's a family deal, right? Like, oh yeah, here, I'm going to sell you this car. You're going to pay me $100 a month for this car.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Sure am. Starting. As soon as I can.
In the fall.
Yeah, after the summer. Yeah.
When the snow flies.
So the bottom line. So the issue is that there's not enough income. Right. But so my client comes to me, and my client is the parent, comes to me and says, "Yeah, I'm going to sell one of my properties, and that'll solve all my problems." And I was like, "Well, yes, it
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it financially, absolutely, it will solve your problem. You'll have plenty of income. Oh, make no mistake about it. But on the other hand, what do parents always want to do? What do you as a parent? What is the number one thing?
We just talked about it 5 seconds ago. Take care of your kids.
Take care of your kids.
Do right by your kids.
Take care of your kids, and all we want is to make your kids happy.
Make them happy.
That's it. At the end of the day.
After we make our wives happy, then the kids. In that order.
But usually
wives first.
Usually one hand washes the other.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And usually, as long as the wives are happy, then maybe the kids are happy. But but really, at the end of the day, as long as mom's happy, that's all that matters.
It's funny you say that, because I'm often accused of siding with mom.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you guys will get it. You guys will get it
for all the right reasons.
Why is Dad always on mom's side? Right?
Because you're leaving in 4 days, and guess who gets to stay with mom?
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Guess who gets the So there it is, and so I want to kind of talk about that dynamic and kind of get your input on, because not only is you have like the short target is mom doesn't have enough income,
right?
But then we kind of touched on some of the other targets, like, okay, well, if mom doesn't have enough income, but what does the estate plan look like? What is when mom 30 years from now when mom passes away, what is this all going to look like? How is this all getting divvied up?
Well, funny you said that. I have 2 of these cases going on
Perfect.
right now. So this is the perfect. It's almost like we planned it. Perfect opportunity to have this conversation. Sort of inter-family dealings and how this could work.
Great stuff.
Especially when it comes to real estate and that all-important vacation home.
Yeah. All right. So we've had 2 weeks to prepare for this.
So this will be the lights out.
All right. So after this quick break, we're going to jump right in. All right. So Tom, we did say your name earlier, that's really it.
Tom's the best.
So I just want to say, hey, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a while. Have you been playing any golf?
Only once.
What?
I know.
I mean,
only once. Shot a 68. He's really aggravated about it. Don't get him started.
Yeah, I bogeyed the last hole. Are you kidding me? Can't believe it, right? Yeah. Oh, well, all right. So what about you? Been playing some golf?
Yeah, played last night.
All right, good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Don't go away. We'll talk a little bit golf talk too. All right. We'll be right back.
And we're back. Money in the Law, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden, the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. Tom's on the bag. And we are just sitting here talking a little shop with the kiddos, getting out the door for school. And now that the kiddos are out the door for school, now the family can start fighting about stuff. And so we're talking about planning around sort of specific targeted business dealings, if you will, inside the family, especially as they relate to real estate.
Family dynamics. But before we jump into that, I have to say, I forgot to say this. Your name came up yesterday. And I don't know if it was in good light, or I'm not saying one way or the other.
In vain.
Yeah. So we'll give a shout out right now, a joint shout out to our joint landscaper, a guy by the name of, from Holliston, the one and only Jimmy Reed.
Oh, the great Jimmy Reed.
Yeah. So yesterday there's been some issues with our property. There's been some discussion about that maybe things are getting a little out of hand.
Oh,
right?
he'll tell you.
Yeah. I get a couple of the tenants were like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right.
And I was like, "No, I'm sorry. It's not my fault. The rain and
Yeah.
blah blah blah." So
Nature.
finally, I'm like, "Enough is enough," right? So I call the one and only Jimmy Reed. I call him, and the first thing he says, he goes, "Oh yeah, I was going to call you," right? and so we're like, obviously, I need to get some stuff. And he said, "Yeah, because I was just talking to Marsden, and Marsden was saying the same thing." I'm like, "Whoa. What do you mean? Marsden was talking about my yard?"
No,
Marsden
no.
was talking, and he came quickly to your defense. I'm like, because if I find out about that, I'm going to talk about that on radio, on TV.
Yeah.
If he's talking about, wait, there's a couple weeds, I get it, but
Yeah. So he gave me the same thing. He was kind of giving the old, hey, did a drive-by the other day. I think your place needs a little attention. I'm like, hey, you're the landscaper. You know better than I would. Have at it. Have at it.
So the best of the end of the story is the best. So I called him at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it wasn't a complaint. It was more of a suggestion. Could you please do something? So that came in around 9:30. At 10 o'clock, I called Jimmy. Jimmy's like, "Yeah, my guys can come by at 1 o'clock and do all that today."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not fast enough. No, of course. So I was like, yeah. So then, of course, it all gets done. And of course, I walk out to like the people
Sure.
in the office that were actually. I'm like, is that fast enough for you? I'm sorry. You're gonna have to wait another 2 hours before this all gets done. So.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's worth it. It's
all
worth
right.
it.
So,
Time well spent.
R&R Landscape and Jimmy Reed Holliston. He's technically a sponsor in that he makes us look better.
He does
so
make us look better.
throw out to him.
But yeah, good man. Good man.
All right.
Love those guys. Love those guys.
Let's dive in. So
So I think what you're suggesting is you get these scenarios where, and again, for the purposes of this discussion, it's always a piece of property. It's usually a vacation property, right? Somebody's got an eye on the Cape House.
well, it's vacation, or it's some property that has some value,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. And somebody, and we've talked about this. We've talked about this on the show before, where somebody wants the property, somebody's using the property, somebody wants the property, and they can't afford the property, right? So you get kind of multiple, not competing.
And then there's somebody
issues.
that doesn't use the property.
That's right. So you get these competing, not interests, but you have these competing
Priorities.
levels of interest in the property, in the priority. And if, like you said, if it's a Cape House and somebody lives in Oregon, they don't care, right?
They don't get out there much.
Yeah, it's not my thing, and I'm not moving back. Like, this is it. Like, this is the deal. So what happens is there's always somebody who wants the property, and when they want the property, depending on what they want, the way we start this whole conversation off with families is we say, look, the best way to handle this is, I hate to say it, you have to treat this like a business transaction among total strangers.
Sure.
If you're looking to keep everybody from clawing each other's eyes out, this is the way you want to do it. If somebody wants to buy the property and it's from mom and dad, then mom and dad got to make a decision. A, we want to sell it. B, who we selling it to. And then C, how much are we selling it for? Those things have to be agreed upon. And if mom and dad are cool with that, then it usually goes off relatively straightforward. But if mom and dad are kind of cool with it, and then they got one kid chirping in their ear over here about the deal that they should get, and they get somebody over here chirping in their ear about the deal that somebody else is getting, and the reason they're mad about that deal is because they can't afford to buy the property, so they're mad that it's even being sold to somebody else when it really could be sold to them, but they can't afford to buy it anyway, so mom and dad should just wait. So this gets messy.
Yeah, and then there's always that, like, well, we've had, there's the nostalgia and history that comes along with it, right? So that's always a factor as well, like, because in let's call it the one child or the one player that is, say, they're really invested in the property. They go there all summer long.
Yep.
They spend the most time, and they do most of the work for it as well. Like, they're the ones who are fixing stuff.
Yeah,
they're
repair,
the ones,
maintenance,
they're the
upkeep.
ones who, maybe if they're renting it, they handle the renting piece. Like, they do kind of all the legwork on the property, which, as you know, it involves some work, right? It involves some.
Well, it does involve some work, but what, at the risk of sounding, we try to obviously be a little more diplomatic when we talk about this with clients. But in my mind,
not here.
but not here.
Not
but,
talking to you, Tommy.
but what I'll say is, like, in the back of my mind, I say to myself, look, I get that you did all that stuff,
Yeah.
but two things. First of all, number one, It's your parents.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's all agree that
that's a great point, right? Because in the meeting last night I said that I'm
Right.
like, this is your mother we're talking about, right?
That's right. That's right. Let's the woman who brought you into this world, right?
Right.
Who took care of you, who got you basically to where you wouldn't be standing here without mom and dad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You certainly wouldn't be going to Cape Cod every week.
That's right. That's right. So first of all, let's all take a step back and let's remember that it's mom and dad's house.
Yeah.
So let's just understand that. Second of all, if you have been a good son or daughter, or however you want to define that, and you've been helping mom and dad, and you're cutting the lawn, and you're fixing the gutters, and you're playing around with the shutters, and you did all that stuff. And oh, by the way, if while you were down there, you may have snuck off to the beach for a little bit of time, so there's maybe a little bit of a benefit to you being down there.
You may have a seasonal beach pass on your car.
That's right. That's
where the other ones don't.
That's right. That's right. So those things, like, yeah, it's great that you did that. But what we try to tell people is at the end of the day, which everybody forgets, right? This is your parents' house, right? Do you remember having this level of awareness like I remember this distinctly, having this level of awareness as a child where I wasn't a child anymore. All of a sudden I was like in my late teens, early 20s, where it finally hit me like, yeah, this is my house and I grew up here. But it's not my house. It's my parents.
Yeah, when you move out,
yeah, that's right.
Because you move out and you're like, I'm looking for my house. I want my own house.
Yeah.
Right? I want to grow up. I want to be an adult.
That's right. So this property belongs to mom and dad. It's their property to do with what they wish.
Yeah, but here's the rub. The issue is that. And you as having siblings, me myself as having siblings, it's natural. It's human nature. Where let's say if you're the guy who's taking care of the Cape House and you're doing all the work, and your sister is doing nothing, all your sister does is roll in and like, what's for dinner?
Where's the beach chair?
Exactly. Right? Like, could somebody load the car, put the kayak up on top of the car for me?
That's right.
Right? So it's that human nature that where the relative commitment or the relative kind of input into this is always going to kind of stand. So it's like, yeah, I've done all the work. We wouldn't have this. None of this would happen if it wasn't for me doing all that work.
So great point. So my suggestion to those people out there who are feeling this way is two things. Number one, you need to get in front of this early. Right? Like, I mean, look, you can see it develop, right? Like, we talk about all the personalities, right? The kind of involved, the not involved, the super involved, and the I want to be involved, but I can't afford to be involved, right? So when the super involved and the I want to be involved, but I can't afford to be involved clash, right? This is where it gets messy. So, but my point is, you can see this coming 1,000 miles away, right?
Yep.
Every single time when you text your brother in the summer, and he's down at mom's house in Wellfleet, that's because guess what? He's certainly there to see mom and dad. We'll obviously grant them that.
Yeah.
But he's also there for his own ulterior motives, which involve a deck chair, a beach chair, and some sunscreen. And if he's there every weekend, you as a family member need to recognize, you know what? I think he likes the Wellfleet house.
Yeah.
I think he really likes the Cape Place.
Well,
what is this going to look like?
And that's the thing. It's not like it's not. And we'll pick my brother, who of course has done far more for my mother's house and my parents' house than any of us combined, right? And we all know that. And we all recognize that. But it's not like that he's down there like taking care of my mother. It's not like it's that's one thing if it's you're actually providing care, like necessary care.
Yeah, he carries your mother to a shower chair. He's doing God's work.
That's a different animal.
That's right. That's right.
So you're in this place where you're like one person, like you said, one person or one or a couple people maybe do more than the other, and getting in front of it is if you can get somebody like you or me, like that outside, like kind of third party, disinterested third party, and they can be like, hey, let's just call it for what it is. And the first thing is it's not even. It's not equal. It's not equal because of all the choices that you all adult children have made. You've made the choice to live in Oregon. You've made the choice that you're going to go to Cape Cod, that's where you want to summer.
Yep.
That's where you want to spend your time because it's convenient, because it's super economical because there's a house there. Yeah. So
you the other person, you made a series of career choices that while have given you the professional career and the growth that you want, you've chose a path that maybe doesn't put you in a position financially where doing something like this works. So again, you're exactly right. Everybody's coming at this from a different different
So,
place.
and everybody's different, so of course it's not going to be equal.
No.
So of course it's not going to be equal at the end of the day. But what does need to be equal is like everybody needs to be taken into consideration. Everybody needs to. So if there's somebody out in Oregon who never uses the Cape House, and in my circumstance, in our particular case, you have somebody who's like, I don't have enough money. I don't make enough money. I don't have enough money in my bank. I don't have enough income. My Social Security isn't enough. I don't get income from anywhere else. I need more money. And I have the property I live in, and then I have my vacation home, and I don't really use the vacation home. This is my client.
Yeah.
I don't really use it. I don't care about it. And I know you kids love it. Most of some of you love it. But I don't want it anymore. And so the quick, easiest answer, and this is what I said, is if you sell that, then you will have $1.5 million in the bank.
Yep.
And you know what? That ought to do it. That you're going to be just fine. You're not going to feel like you don't have any money
That's right.
anymore.
That'll get you to the finish line.
Yeah, it'll get you well beyond the finish line.
Yep.
And that'll be and so this short target problem of you not having enough money, that solves that quickly. Now, the other side of that is,
oh, and by the way, and that problem is solved by selling that to a third party. We hire a broker, we have somebody come in, we stage the property, we put offers out there, or we put the property out there for sale, we field offers, and somebody comes in and says, here you go, Mrs. John's client, Mr. John's client, here's your check for $1.5 million. They get their money, the kids say, we had a great run, and everybody goes away. Problem solved. Problem solved.
And now that's like kind of the easiest answer.
Correct.
That's the I say the cleanest answer.
That is the
at
cleanest
the end of the day.
option.
Now,
Absolutely right.
Let's throw in but I'm a parent. All I care about is I want my kids to be happy, and I see that my one son or my one daughter, or my two of my kids are miserable, and they loathe me because of what I've just done. I've sold their dreams,
Their lifetime of memories.
I've sold their legacy. I've sold their own children. They've brought their own children there. This literally like an infinite number of memories and wonderful
countless
times.
beach pictures.
Right. We have like books upon books of pictures of just that time. So do I really want to do that? Do I want to put myself in that position? And obviously, no. You don't want your kids to be mad at you. You don't want your kids to be miserable.
You don't. Go ahead. Continue. Looks like you're going somewhere.
I will.
I have thoughts. Go ahead.
You're right. We agree. But you don't want your kids to be miserable. But at the same time, you've got this problem you have to solve. So then it comes, and this is why they came to me and said, all right, well, what do you think? What would you do in those circumstances? It's funny you say that because I'm in a relatively my mother lives in Cape Cod. She has a beautiful house. And I have siblings that one that lives relatively close and uses it all the time. We live relatively close, but then my sisters, they live in Chicago.
Right.
So they get there a couple times a year. Now they don't get me wrong, they love it, and they make it's a point to get up, but they're not in the same
They're not within striking distance. Yeah.
Right. So this whole thing of like, well, if mom needs money, right? So I said, if my mother needed money and we want to maintain what we have, we want to keep what we have right now. We're not ready to make that change yet, right? We're not ready to kind of, to make that, because we don't necessarily have to, but something has to be done about my mother's money, about her income. Then I said, look, like you said, treat it as a business deal. Think of it as an investment, right? So if you guys all want to keep this, if you want to keep this property, then it's an investment. So and this is how much this investment costs.
Yes.
Right? And the cost is mom's income.
Mom has a shortfall.
She's in the red of, let's call it $3,000 or $4,000 a month, right? Because that's how much everything costs and blah blah blah. And if we can't fix that, then the only thing she could do is to sell the property.
Yep. So then so you say to the family, what do you want to do?
Well,
right? Do you guys want to buy the property from mom, right?
Well, that's right.
And what that means is that you sit down and you work it out amongst the three of you, for example, if you're all going to own the property together, and you all figure out your finances, and you all go get a mortgage, right? Just like you would if you didn't know mom, if you just all three of you decided, hey, we're buying a place in the Cape together, and you're all going to roll out.
What could go wrong?
You're going to get a $500,000 mortgage. You're going to get a $500,000 mortgage. You're going to get a $500,000 mortgage, and we're all going to be responsible for the mortgage, and we're going to all put our
split the taxes.
Yep, we're going to do the whole thing, have a slush fund, play the game, and mom gets a check.
Yeah.
And that can work. That can work until people say, when's it not going to work? I go, oh, you'll know when it doesn't work.
Oh, it's not
Don't
going to
worry.
work in about 3 weeks.
It could be a problem. So,
Yeah.
and usually it's a problem because the reasons that we just mentioned, right? Out of the 3 people, if it's 3 people who want in, one person can afford to do it, one person can't afford to do it, and one person really doesn't care about doing it.
Well, you said that. You said it first. You said, okay, the cleanest way to do this is we sell it to some disinterested third party,
Yep.
or interested in the sense that they're going to pay the market value of said house.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So that's the easiest thing to do, but obviously it's going to make children unhappy and miserable. So the next thing is,
But then we go back to what we talked about earlier. Okay, guys, I get that it's going to make you unhappy, and that's unfortunate, and boo hoo hoo. But let's go back to the original premise, which is this is your mother's house. Okay, not your house yet, not your house. Maybe, possibly, this is mom's house. Mom's still with us. We have to make some decisions around taking care of mom right now. So put that in your head, okay, and go proceed.
And so then we go to the next potential. The next potential thing is that, well, if mom wants to sell the house, maybe one of you guys or you collectively can buy it from her.
Yep.
And then all of kind of like the nuances and issues and problems that come along with that, and like, well, how much are you going to sell it to the kids for, and
That's
you know,
the
blah
next
blah blah.
problem, yep.
So there's that issue, and then there's the third option. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. We're going to address the you know, some of the problems of selling it, or potential problems of selling it to the existing family, and you had alluded to some of them, and then we'll talk about the third issue, which is actually just what solves the problem, at least in the short term. Don't go away.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
All right, we're back. Money Law, My FM, 101.3, Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Main FM Financial, Tom on the bag. We're talking about the easy, smooth, problem-free transition that can happen when everyone's fighting over the Cape House.
Yeah.
For the vacation house, main house, lake house, call it what you want. That's what happens. So right now, we just kind of talked about how, look, basically the fact pattern is mom needs some money, and we got a house, and we're trying to figure out how to get the money out of the house to mom, and maybe not keep the house so the family can continue to use it for those who.
Well, let's
want
back
to
up. Let
continue
me
to use
back you up even a minute. So that's not. It's not. We need to get the money out of the house from mom. Mom needs money.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So mom needs money. That's the issue. The issue is.
That's all about.
The issue is, I make this much, I spend this much.
Yep.
You know, with one hand being higher
Sure.
than the other, and I need to be able to. I need to make ends meet. Right. I need to.
Sure.
I need to break even. How do I do that? And because, you know, mom is 78 years old and is no longer, has been retired for 10 or 15 years, she's not going to go back to work. She's not going to go back and get it. And she's 78. She doesn't have to go back to work, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so mom needs money. And that's the thing. The other part of this, which I was trying to, which I kind of listened to the group.
Sure.
And then after I kind of heard, you know, kind of all the things, and I'll relay some of that. At the end of it, I was like, okay, A, this is your mother, and B, and I didn't want to like belabor this, but like your mother's older, right? Your mother's older, so that means who knows how long she's going to be at this stage, right?
Sure.
She could be good to go for the next 30 years. She could be like one of those like super, or not. Or it could be less time. And no one really knows how much time she's going to be where she's going to be able to live by herself.
Right.
She's going to be able to take care of herself. She's going to be able to not be like a burden, like just to anybody else, or not require any more work or so.
Sure.
So you don't know how long it's going to be. So, but you know what? She's there now. She's earned this. She's earned the fact that she can now. And she has assets. She has
Oh,
capabilities.
she's amassed this war chest.
Exactly.
And this war chest is to be used to take care of her in retirement. And one of those things in her war chest happens to be a piece of property.
Yeah, and you know what? She doesn't need, she shouldn't have to be like, oh, I have to really kind of like watch my, you know, pinch my pennies and kind of,
Right.
you know, tighten up my belt and be like, oh, I can't spend money on this, because you know what? She doesn't have to.
Right.
And nor should she have to at age 78.
Well,
Especially
if you have $1.5 million assets sitting here and doing essentially nothing because of the way she's using it now,
Nothing.
and you say to yourself, what are we doing with this?
Yeah.
Right? What are we doing with this? And so now you get into this whole like, all right, so kids, what do you know?
Exactly.
First of all, mom, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And that's hard because there's always these outside forces. Hey, mom, let's go to lunch. Hey, mom, let's go to lunch. All of a sudden, mom's going to lunch 5 times a week because the kids are all bouncing all what they think she should do
course they
off
do.
of her, and it's all competing interests.
And right, everybody's got, and you know, not, in their defense, everybody cares. Like they care about. It's not that they don't care about them. Of course they care, but they do have compete. From where I sit, I live in Oregon. I really want you to be happy, Mom. But you know what? I mean, sell the house.
Yeah.
You know, because if you sell it, yeah, you know, this person's going to be upset, but then you're going to have enough money. You're going to solve your money problem. Then while the other one's like, whoa, why would you want to do that? We've had so much time there. Maybe we can make this work. You know, maybe we can get more income from the rental property and blah blah blah. And I'm like, and finally I was like, enough's enough. Like I don't want to hear that. I go, here's Mom needs money. Mom needs more money. And if you want to retain this property, if you want to, or if you don't want to make the decision now to decide to sell it, and if you want to hold on to it, or at least just kick that can down the road, then how are we going to bring Mom's income up to where it needs to be?
Well, so you mentioned before the break, you say, okay, well, if we're going to sell it to the kids, of course, right?
One option is that, right?
Yeah, sell it to, but then you mentioned the other option, which is, well, Mom wants to make the kids happy. So if we're going to make the kids happy, well, I don't want them to pay fair market value. I want to give them a deal.
Yeah.
I want to give them a deal, right? So you say, okay, well, what kind of deal do you want to give them? I mean, you can give them a deal. You can do whatever you want to do, Mom, but don't give somebody such a great deal that it kind of frustrates the whole purpose of why we did this, right? That's the challenge, right? So let's say that Mom gives them a deal. Then what usually happens is, moms being moms, they want to make sure that whatever deal Kid A gets, Kid B or Kid C or Kid D or Kid E or whatever the numbers look like, they somehow get trued up somewhere down the road.
And that's where the estate plan comes into this.
Yep.
The estate plan is like, okay, look, we're going to do this now to take care of Mom, but because in the back of everybody's mind, and it's human nature, they're thinking, well, wait a minute, if Joe got if Joe gets to if we're going to keep the Cape House and he's going to buy it and then give everybody like full access to it, then guess what? Joe owns a Cape House.
Yeah.
And when Mom goes, Joe owns that, and you know who's going to own it after Joe? Joe's kids.
Yep.
Not my kids, not Denise's kids.
Yeah.
Like Joe's.
Oh, and by the way, if Joe doesn't want us down, we're not coming down. Because guess what? It's Joe's Cape House.
Right.
If Joe says, look, guys, I know you want to come down. I got big plans that weekend. We get friends. We get family. Like, Joe's going to make his own memories down there that may not involve to the degree that his siblings would like them to be involved, that they get involved. They might be on the outside looking in a lot more than they thought they were going to.
And they may be fine with it. They may be like, all right, you know what, that's fine. You want to buy it, and you're going to use it, then great. And we can use it whenever we want, you know, pretty much.
Yep.
Then we're okay with that. But like you said, how does everybody get trued up down the road? And you may think, oh, well, I'll give this person this property, this person this property, and this person this property, or whatever, you know, however you divvy it up. But you don't know what it's going to be worth at the end of the day.
Well, so it's funny you mentioned that. So the assumption always, and you and I have talked about this a million times, right? So the assumption always is, well, Joe's going to get the Cape House. Let's say it's $1.5 million, and Mom gives him a deal and he gets it for $1.2 million. So just make a number up, right?
$1 million.
Gives him a discount, right? So now, of course, the assumption is, well, he got a real gift because now this thing is going to be worth a ton of money, and then down the road we kind of get stiffed. And
it's not an assumption. It's full blown fact. It's a gift.
Well, it's a flat out gift. But then my point is, and then the assumptions always rotate around. That house is going to go in one direction, right? And so then the answer is, well, what if the house goes in the other direction? Like, what if Joe got a $1.5 million Cape House for $1 million, and then when Mom passes away, the house is worth $800,000?
Which is
a distinct possibility, right?
Those are investments, right?
I don't know the answer. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but that's something that potentially has to kind of get factored into. So the way we've handled these things in the past.
That's what I want to know. I want to know.
Yeah. So the way that we've handled things in the past is basically what you end up doing is you do a couple of things. The first thing you can always do is you can say to the family, get over it. Okay, that's the first thing you say, right? Mom's free to do whatever it is that she wants to do. And if that means that she's cutting you guys, not in a negative way, but if she's cutting Joe out of the future distribution of the estate because she did him a solid on the Cape House now, that's always one option. Mom can always say, hey, I took care of Joe while I was alive. He got the Cape House. He's not in it to win it for anything that I might leave behind. He chose his path. This is what he wanted. That's fine. I did that. You guys are going to get whatever I have left, whatever that number looks like, with the understanding that if Mom's care needs go through the roof, that there could be substantially less money available to surviving heirs compared to what.
Substantially
That's right.
less.
That's right. That's right. Mom goes to a nursing home. Mom has dementia. Mom's shelling out $15,000 a month for a nursing home. You know.
That's why the selling to the kids that's why I like the early sales to
Yeah.
the kids. That's where that makes me feel a little. I'm uneasy about that.
Well, what we would usually do is we would come up with. There's usually a formula you try to come up with, right? And the formula usually goes something like, at the time of my passing, whatever it looks like, however much money I have in the bank, there's how much money is going to get split up between everybody, and then off the top comes whatever gift I might have given to Joe, right? So if Joe got a $500,000 gift and I leave $1 million, we start divvying everything up. We take the 500 right off the top and say, well, that goes back into the pool for everybody else, Joe. I don't want you doubling down, and you'll get whatever you get minus whatever gift I gave to you while you. That's usually how these things get approached.
Yeah, and again, even that's not clean because who knows what's going to be left, right? Who knows? Because you do that now while everybody's healthy, but as you know, if someone goes into a nursing home, spends a considerable amount of time, and then here's the other problem. The other problem is then then you start thinking about then people are like, well, you know what, Mom, maybe this nursing home isn't the best one for you. Maybe you should go to this one because it's in Oregon and it's not in Massachusetts, so it's less.
Right.
It costs, and then you then there's that whole issue too, like where
we've seen that where somebody comes in and says, hey, let's give Mom.
Let's try and save some money.
Let's put Mom in the C-list nursing home because we're going to save a couple of bucks because everything we spend on her is money we're not going to get at the end, and we're trying to keep up with our brother who got this deal over here, and that becomes a problem. So then you feel like you're sort of making these decisions around Mom's care that are money driven when they shouldn't be.
They're totally money driven.
Yeah.
And again, it all comes back to this problem is solved if she sold it to some Joe Schmo who paid 1.5 for it and was happy to do it.
Well, and by the way, if she sells it to some Joe Schmo,
not to be confused with Joe, her son. I'm sorry,
that's
it's
right.
a bad
different Schmo.
Yeah,
but
Mike Schmo.
But she can
Tom
always
Schmo.
I mean, she can always potentially say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm getting 1.5. I'm going to take 500 of my 1.5, and I'm going to donate. I'm going to make gifts to everybody, right? And I'm going to give you 100 grand. I'm going to give you 100 grand. And if you want to go buy a Cape House for 100 grand, is it going to be this one? No, it's not. But if you want to go, if I'm setting you off on your own path, then you go on your own path. You do what you want to do. You get a $100,000 deposit for a Cape Place. If that's our vacation, Lake Maine, whatever your thing is, then you go and you look and you do what you want to do. And if that's your plan, then great. Mom's done a solid by everybody.
Yep.
At the end of the day, we keep repeating it to everybody. It's not your money.
Yep.
It's Mom's money. She gives you 100. It's 100 more than you had yesterday. You should be grateful.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you, Mom. I really appreciate it. You don't have to do this, right? But that's so.
But again, it's that kind of relative to, oh, my sister got more than I got.
Yeah.
And that causes resentment, and it also causes pain for the parent, because if I'm mad at my sister and I'm not talking to my sister, then my mother's 80 years old. She's not happy about that.
Right.
Doesn't make her happy.
No, that's not how she envisioned her golden years
Exactly.
going. Right. It's two separate Thanksgivings because the kids can't get together because they're all bent about the beach
inheritance
house.
that hasn't happened yet.
That's right. Which they might not even be entitled to. Mom says, I'm giving it all charity. And this is the thing. You don't know, in your mind, you might not know what Mom's real wishes are. There are plenty of parents out there who say, my kids get whatever's left. I'm not looking to do anything more for anybody because I'm going to need it. And it's mine and I earned it and that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You just don't know. And so these scenarios, like I said, I think the way that these scenarios are best, it's all about communication, which is, obviously if it was that easy, right, there'd be no problems, you and I'd be out of jobs, right? But so it really is, it's all about open communication. And here's the other thing, and I think this is critical. It's about open communication, but it's also being open about the idea that this issue is not going to get resolved in one sit down.
Right.
Okay? And I say that because you want to tell everybody, look, we're going to get in a room, right? And we're going to talk about the options of how this can be handled. And then we're going to end the meeting and everyone's going to leave. Hopefully go to lunch together, not kill each other, right? And then you're all going to think about what we talked about. And then there's going to be another meeting and we're going to talk about everything again. And you're going to do this a handful of times. I don't know what the magic number is, 2, 3, 4 times. And then you're going to get there, I think, a little bit easier because some of these problems might not solve themselves, but people need time to wrap their head around these things, right? The sibling who flat out just can't afford the Cape House, no matter how many ways we crunch the numbers, it's going to take them a little while to wrap their head around, to come to terms with the fact that maybe for the first time in their lives, they've realized I have some financial challenges, or there are some things that are financially outside of my reach. Where up until now, they've just been dreaming about this summer, summer vacation,
Every
dreamscape.
summer.
That in reality.
My kids got jobs down the Cape. It's the best. Right. Yeah, they live down there.
But in reality, that whole thing was subsidized by everybody else in the family.
Exactly.
And they've just never come to terms with it. And so they're going to need.
They don't see it, right?
They
don't see it. And so when you have these meetings, and you know this because it's what you do. Having that like kind of third party in there, having your estate planning attorney in there to sit there and say, okay, we're going to all speak frankly now, and because you know how it is when siblings get together, there's always going to be like, oh, you got this, you got that. So it's great to have somebody who's like kind of like but you're also the representative of the parent. You're there, and
and you're going to make that very clear at the beginning. To say, look, here's who I represent in this whole.
And that's what I said. Because I said that, I said, look, if I didn't know any of, because I know all the siblings, and if I didn't know you guys, and this is like my client, I would say, okay, here you go, sell the Cape House, and your money, everything's solved. Now, I because I know you, and I know that you have interest, and I I care about, and more importantly, I know that my client, that your mother cares about your interests. It's like, how does this problem solve? And I come back to, like, the fundamental thing is, all our job is to make people happy.
Yep.
I'm trying to make you happy. Now it revolves around, how, in your case, it revolves around how their estate gets passed to their heirs. In my case, and in your case as well, how their retirement goes, how they manage and fund their retirement, and how they're able to kind of to spend their money and save money and do all the things they've worked so hard to be able to achieve. So at the end of the day, the most important thing is that they're happy. Right. Yeah. So I want my clients to be happy. So if I can make my client happy by fixing this income problem, and then not having to sell the house, right? Yep. Not having to sell the house, or to do something that everybody openly and wholeheartedly agrees to. Absolutely. Kate, you should buy the house. It's your house. We want you to buy the house. We get it, and we understand that if you buy the house, the value could go up, the value could go down, and we want to, and whatever's left over, we're going to.
And you know what? And we want you to buy the house because you clearly love it. You spend the most time there. All of us like it, but nobody likes it like you. And if you're going to buy the house, that's great. And even better. And you know what? And if mom gives you a break for any number of reasons, for whatever the reason is, right? You get the break. That's mom's decision. We're fine with it. That's cool. That's between you and mom. We don't care about that.
We're okay with
that's fine. That's fine. That's
and that's the nirvana kind of perfect situation.
And then mom says what we just talked about. She says, okay, and by the way, and I'll hook you guys up on the other side, right? I'll apportion my retirement money appropriately. I'll apportion my 1.5 that I'm getting from this appropriately to you guys, and then we're good. And if there's a bunch, and I hope there's a pile left, and you guys will raise a glass and speak well of me. But we all recognize that the chances exist that it's not going to be $1 million left to me because I'm going to live my life off of it. It's not going to happen that way, and we have to all be okay with that.
But if that isn't that perfect, nirvana scenario isn't the case, then the next step is this. Okay, I'm not going to sell the house. I'm not going to, I need money. So and me as the financial planner, I'm like, okay, she needs money. Guess what? It's an investment in the house, and because all I want is my client to be happy. My client won't be happy if one sibling is mad at another sibling.
Yep.
So how do I do that? How do I make it all even? I say everything's even. The Cape House is still split. It's split evenly.
Sure.
Right. So we're going to keep the Cape House, and because everybody has an interest in it, like an interest in because the trust says, guess what? You're all good. 25% of this house is yours, whatever it's worth, and then while my client is still alive and still viable and still still lives there, she doesn't have to deal with that.
Right.
She doesn't have to deal with like, okay, well, you use it more than this, so right now everything's and in order to keep the Cape House, she needs an extra $4,000 a month. Where is that going to come from? And then I say to, and then I say to the
everybody
kids,
get your checkbook
yeah,
out.
here's the account, here's the bank account
Yep.
that and everybody's going to write a check every month into this account
For $1,000 each.
Yep, and let's say you can't. Let's say you're a single parent and you have 3 kids and you can't afford to do it, but you can and you can and you everybody can, and then you know what? Then we'll do it proportionally. Then proportionally you can and you can work those numbers out.
Sure.
You could say, right, you're gonna you can only afford to do $200 a month, or you may not be able to afford anything. You may and so. So in order to keep the Cape House, the person who lives in Chicago and is a banker, maybe they fit the whole $4,000
Sure.
bill. And you know what? So when the estate gets settled, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road,
There's the big true up.
They're gonna get trued up, and it could be a proportion. It could be equity in the house, in the Cape House. It could be any number of things. But you know who doesn't have to deal with that right now? Is my client.
Right.
My client doesn't have to deal with, oh well, Dave does it, so but all of the children understand that mom needs money now.
Well,
and if you want to keep the house, this is how you do it.
Well, and you bring up a great point. If you there's a whole bunch of options, right? That's one option. There's other options out there, guys. These are what the options look like. Again, we're going to figure out what's the goal here. Is the goal, if the goal is keep the house, and if there's a 2-pronged goal, keep the house and get mom money. Well, there's 2 ways to do it. One way is to sell the house and you guys get cash at some point, but mom gets the cash she needs, or you guys give cash with the idea that you're holding something at the back end. And we tell everybody, look, you can make any deal you want to make with everybody. Everybody just needs to be on the same page when it comes to the deal. And that's the hardest part, because at some point, someone's going to say, I'm getting screwed. And then it becomes, hold on, now you're making it about you. This is supposed to be about mom. What's the problem? How do we have to handle this going forward?
Right.
That's where things get really dicey.
Yeah, and right, so that person who lives on the other side of the country, they may be like, well, yeah, that's great. And you know what, again, that can's kicked down the road. So when mom finally passes, right, and the estate is getting settled, and let's say everybody's 25% in on the estate, that's what then it comes that now it's big decision time. Now it's kind of grown up time, okay? Now, okay, Joe lives in Oregon. He has 25%, and you've seen this before.
Ownership
He's
interest
got
in a house.
interest in a house that he never goes to.
Nope.
And everybody else loves it. Then something's got to be done.
Well, you know what he's saying? He's saying, guys, I don't want a Cape House. I want a house out here on the Oregon coast.
Exactly.
That's right. And by the way, that money from the sale of mom's house,
$500,000 is going to make that happen.
that's going to make it happen. It's going to absolutely right. Absolutely right.
And the fair thing to do at that point is for them to say, okay, hey, 3 of us want to keep the Cape House. He doesn't. We need to collectively buy him out.
Yep,
Right? Buy
that's
him
right.
out at fair market value, not like it. There's no deal. And that's the other thing about the whole deal
deal window's gone.
There's no deals.
Yep.
There's no, and because it's not fair, right?
Well, here's the first deal that people always jump to. The first deal is, well, there's no broker. Like, everybody can do that math in their head, right? First thing right away.
Saving money,
Everyone's
baby.
knocking 5% off because there's no broker. That's all they care about.
Poor
right?
Ed Daniels,
That's
right? Yeah, poor Eddie.
No broker,
Sorry,
fine.
Ed.
So 5 off the top. Okay, everybody, you get your 5 off the top.
Saving
Great,
money.
great contribution,
You're the best.
fantastic, right? That was so helpful, right? So yes, so then you got to say, look, we're now we got to do some horse trading, and I want money because it's money, and I want that's why they call it money, right? We love that
Exactly.
and so I want that.
Everybody
and
wants money.
That's right.
That's why they call it money.
That's right. So that's the deal, right? So that's what happens. And now you're right. This is the time for the great true up.
Yep, and the true up happens, and the true up needs to be fair, and you know what, and here's what one of the very likely scenarios is that, yeah, we all want to keep this Cape House. Joe wants to get bought out, but we can't afford to buy him out.
You end up in the same place is what happens.
You sort of end up in the same place, but you know who's not dealing with it is the person who owned the house, the person who bequeathed the that's a word, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Who gave the house to her children. That's not. She doesn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, that's right.
And nor should she.
Nope.
Right? And that's the thing. It's like she shouldn't have to deal with that, because you know what? Right now she's 80 years old. You know what she could deal with? She could deal with $1.5 million in her bank.
That's right.
And deal with that and be like, whoa, what am I going to do with all my money?
Yep. Dinner on me in red heat. Oh, go ahead, go get him. You're on it.
Yeah,
Yep.
right, yeah. Early though. We're going early.
Yeah, very early. Yeah, you gotta go to bed. Yeah, your program's on.
All right, that's it.
All right.
Another great show.
Another
All
great
right,
show. So for those of you out there struggling with the family house debacle, give us
It doesn't
a
have
call.
to be a debacle.
No, we can
It doesn't
fix it.
have to be
We
a
can fix
debacle.
it.
But it has to be reality. It has
Yes.
to be, and that's what Jay and I. You know what we are? We are reality.
We're realists. We are realists.
All right. We'll see everybody next week on Money Law. Tommy, we'll see you next time.
Great
see you
job.
next time. All right.
See you next week.